what was weight cutting like at that age? Because obviously you see boxers and MMA and UFC fighters at like 23, 24, saying they really struggle with the weight cuts. So what was it like as you got older where maybe that weight was a little bit harder to get off?
You mean like stopping MMA, or what do you mean?
No, like say like as you're say like your last few fights in your career where you had to like make a weight for a fight. What was it like trying to get that weight off? Because obviously as you get older, it's harder to shift weight.
Yeah, that was hard. Like because the weight cut for an MMA fight is completely
It's
different than a
brutal,
yeah than a
brutal.
like I'm doing another weight cut now in March. I do it every March, and it takes 3 months, and it's more of a calorie. The regular way of cutting weight, or one of those
Yeah,
ways.
not as extreme.
Yeah, but when I was in my last fights, I think I got like 12 kilos in 3 weeks. So. But there's something there, like when you know you have to cut 12 kilos,
Yeah,
it's you go to this mentality that uh, you just have to dial in, and there's two fights. There's the weight cut, and then there's the actual fight.
yeah. I watched Chael Sonnen. Watching he was doing a watch along at the last UFC event, and he was saying that a lot of these, like if you go into the UFC cage and you get knocked out, you still won because you've got into that cage and you've made weight. Because he related it back to Khamzat Chimaev, who was meant to fight Nate Diaz last year, and he said that he got maybe a week out of the fight. He was on pace to get to weight and everything, but the doctor told him like your body's on the verge of dying, you need to stop, and he completely refueled. He was miles off the weight limit, and he stood with a smile and he laughed and he didn't care. And someone was like, "What's wrong? Like you've ruined the event." And he said, "I don't care. I'll love to see the next event, and that's more than happy for me."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a wild thing. Like it's the way. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't
Yeah,
say anything else to that.
yeah. Have you had many like really tough experiences with it, with weight cutting in general?
Yeah, when I was younger, I missed weight a couple of times, and I went too close to like getting several symptoms. Like the first symptom you have is that your hearing starts to go off, and it's a symptom of not getting enough water. And well, I don't know what's the word in English, that you lose enough water. So
Yeah,
yeah, and then you get those stomach cramps, and then it starts to get serious. And I I remember I was cutting to the 155 class, and I used to fight in that class, and later in my career in 170. But so used to cut a lot of weight, and I was in a main event, I think, and I couldn't cut the last 3 kilos, and so I had to pay the opponent, and I actually lost the fight, so it was a complete
what's the worth it?
disaster. Yeah, yeah.
So whenever you go through all that, and things that like it sounds that the lead up to a fight is just as brutal. How does it feel then when you do lose that fight that you're working so hard for? Like what's your mindset kind of at straight after, and then as the dust settles a little bit?
Yeah, because winning a fight is the best thing ever, and losing a fight is the worst thing ever. But looking back to it, it's like uh, I felt that everybody hates me and thinks that I'm a loser. But if you look at the big picture, and we know this from X and everything, that nobody's thinking about you. So it's like when you're looking somebody fighting, how long are you going to spend thinking about them losing?
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah. So when I realized that nobody's really like, only the people that are close to you really care about that stuff. So the only way when you meet other people and you talk to them, that's when it might come up. But nobody's thinking about you. So, but at the moment it was horrible. I was always like out of the grid for 2 weeks, and but then you get this drive to train more and look at your mistakes, and it turns to a
yeah.
positive thing in time.
Yeah, I do. Whenever you said that, it was quite funny. I was talking to someone in work the other day. He's a cage fighter as well, but one of his teammates lost his first fight, and he borderline went insane. But we were talking about how it's almost like people like Floyd Mayweather, who's gone on these long winning streaks without a loss. They've kind of almost programmed you to think if you lose, that's you done. You're finished. You're out the door. When
Yeah.
reality is, you'll wake up again tomorrow and you can fight the next month if you want.
Yeah, yeah, and there's nothing like everybody loses. Of course, there's the outliers who might not lose even one fight, but you can think of it as this way: if you like Habib or Floyd, that you win all your fights, but after that you lose one fight, that's gonna be a lot
Could kill
harder than
you.
the guy who loses sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. So, how many times in fights have you went the distance where like the fight hasn't been stopped before the final bell?
Uh, Almost every fight.
Almost every fight. So
Yeah.
I've kind of always been curious about this. That final round of the fight, you're obviously aware that it's the final round. This is kind of give or like eat or be eaten. Where does your mind go when you may think you're maybe behind in a fight in that final round and you've got to pull something big out to get a victory?
Well, it mostly has. It's mostly about the conditioning because if your cardio doesn't hold up, then you're gonna mentally fold, and that will affect everything. But I learned a lot about like in the third round that then you just look at your opponent and you kind of see where they're at. So if there was a lot of Russians that fought and they were really good in the first round, but then they had a poor cardio, so they would gas out in the second or the third round, and you kind of knew you're gonna win the fight, even if they won the first round. You just have to survive the first round, but
Yeah,
it's more like it's not about the opponent that much. It's about you like controlling your. First, you have to have the conditioning because if you don't, that's going to ruin the fight. But if you have the conditioning, it comes down to the mentality that you just control your actions and you control the fight, and more like move on instinct than perform some kind of a thinking pattern in your mind and then do it. You'll be done if you do that. But
yeah,
it's more you just go out there and you kind of code. How do you say it? You watch your opponent and if you can see if they're like gassed, you can see it. And I remember my first professional fight. Before the fight started, I would see the guy was so afraid to fight that I knew I would win this fight, and he was kind of he was so scared that I was like kind of feeling pity for him because there was no fight there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned fighting Russians and things like that. Why are the best MMA and UFC fighters from Russia and Dagestan and these countries that probably don't get as much media attention as they should?
I think because they don't do anything else. I don't think they go to work like us. They just go to train and they eat there with their because they're really like this kind of a tribe mentality that when you see the Russians, they're also always with other Russians. They're not alone, and they train together, they sleep together, they eat together, and they might have like families and everything, but everything is like they take care of each other. But for the training, they do it all day, and we as Western people, we have to go to work most of the time.
Yeah. So when you got into MMA, was there any kind of goal in specific you had going on? Was it to get to to get was it to get to an organization like the UFC, or were you purely in it for yourself?
No, I think it at the first I just wanted to like fight and I didn't have big goals there and because I started fairly late. I was a I used to box when I was a kid, so I had the boxing competition experience, but I just wanted to see how far I can go with this and then I got addicted because I'm addicted as a personality, so I got addicted to the training and the repetition and because it brought so many things into my life that hadn't that did had nothing to do with MMA. So it was weird.
Yeah, you mentioned about being addicted to it. That is something that I actually did want to think about because I was reading through articles whenever I was trying to find like, a line of questions and talk to someone who was in MMA and in the fight business and stuff because I've never really encountered them. But the big thing that was all kind of coming up in all these articles, the big trend was that athletes in these combat sports, they struggle to switch off when they leave the gym and go back to reality because obviously when you're in there, it's as close to wanting to kill someone as it could come, really. So how did you find that balance of treating MMA and combat sport as a religion, as being obsessed over it, but then also having your own personal life and being a normal human at the end of the day?
Well, at the beginning, I couldn't like think about anything else but fighting, and but it kind of goes down in time. But I was still addicted to it, and but I was think because if you wanna, this is like a good example because when I started MMA, there was a lot of people who started with me, but after 2 years, there's only three people left. So the ones who are obsessed about it will stay. Like in you can see it, it's a universal law that it's in here, it's in everything you start. There's not going to be a lot of people after 3 years, even if people say that they're motivated and they're going to do it, and that it's all bullshit. You can see
Yeah,
who's there after 3 years, and because the only people who are going to stay there are the ones who are obsessed or they love doing it or there's something like driving them to do it every day because that's what it's gonna there's gonna be some kind of a lottery ticket, 1 in a million once, but you can't take that as an example because most of the people start do it, they might even do it for a year but they quit, and I did MMA for like 12 years. So after my career, there was two guys left who went to the professional route from the beginning, and there was
yeah,
thousands of people who started MMA. So that's or if you look at Twitter and writing stuff here, when I started in April, there's not many people left. Like even if they have like 10,000 followers, yeah, they might they're gone.